Hittites. This Shabbat is usually a giant Shabbat where 30,000 people converge on Hebron. This year, because of the war, the events have been canceled. You can't cancel the Shabbat, thank God, but you can't cancel the events. And so we're asking people around the world to celebrate with us Hebron in their hearts and in their synagogues around the world. One of the people who's been at the forefront of the story of Hebron is Hebron's most famous researcher, and has a PhD specifically on the story of the tomb of the patriarchs, the matriarchs, and was one of the few people alive today that have been there underneath the building and in the tomb complex itself is Dr. Noam Arnon. Dr. Noam Arnon, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Yishai Fleisher Show.
Good evening, Yishai. Good evening, everybody there.
So, Noam, thank you for joining me. I have two questions for you today, really. First question is, tell me the story about Shabbat Chayei Sarah, the story of how this Sabbath became so big in the Jewish people that so many people celebrate it around the world and come to Hebron. That's question number one. And question number two is going to be about the war that we're at. So let's go with question number one. Tell me a little bit about this Shabbat, why it's important, and how come it became so big.
We returned to Hebron in 1967. I remember as a child. Well, I can remember the days the Jews could not be in Hebron, as the same as in the Kollel. Before 1967, Jews were abandoned, Jews were forbidden to enter the holy sites in Yerushalayim, in Hebron, in Kever Rachel. I remember the day of the liberation of Hebron, Shichrur Hebron, in 1967. And then, when we were here at the beginning, we felt something great is happening. We are there in the biblical scene itself. When it came to Shabbat Chayei Sarah, you speak about Me'arat HaMachpelah, you read about Me'arat HaMachpelah, but you can be there in the scene itself. So more and more people begin to understand we can have this great experience of living the Bible, living the Torah. Not only talking and learning the Torah, but being there in the place itself, it happens. And I would say you can see it happening in front of your own eyes. In the middle of the 60s, they began the terrible, horrible Oslo Accord began to take place. And more people understood that we must strengthen.
You said 60s, maybe you meant 90s.
Middle of the 90s, yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
And more people understood that they must strengthen Hebron in order to ensure its future, that it should not be given away to the enemies. So people came to the Shabbat Chayei Sarah to express their identification, to express their feeling. And the people here were ready with open arms, open houses to absorb everyone and say, well, welcome everybody that comes to spend the Shabbat with here. Now the houses began to be full with people who came to sleeping all over the floor. So we began to build tents around the houses. And more, and every year, this experience had become greater and greater and bigger. And thousands of tents every year fill all the streets and the gardens and the parks and the parking lots and everywhere. And hundreds of caravans come to spend the Shabbat here. And people open their houses, every house, every family absorbs 50, 60 people. And then the place was not enough. Then huge tents were built to feed 5,000 people in one time. It became a marvelous experience. People who have it once come again and again and again and bring their families and bring the friends.
So Noam, it started as Dr. Noam, it started as it's a Shabbat, it's a holy thing, it's a biblical thing, but there was also a protest aspect of it.
I would say it's expressing your feelings to the most ancient site of Jewish history, of Jewish identity. You hug your fathers and mothers. At the same time, you hug your brothers and sisters. So it's this expression of connection. Now in Hebrew, Hebron, what does it mean? Hebron means connection. Lechaber is to connect. So it symbolized the connection of everyone, of the Jewish people, to his own identity, to his own roots, to his own history.
But there were
This is
some people at the time that were trying to push for that disconnect. And
That's
I'm
right.
saying that there was an element of this Shabbat which was there to say no, not just yes, we love it, and yes, we're connecting with our forefathers and
That's
mothers,
right.
but no, don't take this land away from us. Don't do this evil thing. Is that right?
Exactly right. Because as I said, in the middle of the 90s, the Oslo process, the horrible Oslo process moved on and on. More and more terror, more and more tearing the land, more and more giving land to the enemy. And every one of the Jewish people was afraid that Chas v'shalom, God forbid, Hebron could could have been torn away as the same process, like Jericho, like Shechem, like Jenin, whatever, like other parts of Eretz Israel. So here in Hebron, the Jewish people said, no more, no more, we are connected. Try to imagine when you have your phone with you that you see this sign, you are disconnected. You are disconnected. You get lost.
That's right.
So without connection, you get lost. Hebron is the connection to
Yifei.
Jewish identity, to Jewish heritage, to Jewish faith, to Jewish emunah, to the Jewish people.
So Lou Weiss is one of the producers of the show and a good friend of mine. And he writes, Yishai, I realize that the major events are canceled this Shabbat in Hebron. Are some people still planning to attend? What do you say?
Yes, they do. Well, we published and noticed that this year the public event was cancelled, and private families can have private guests, but the public event was cancelled. The army, the police asked us not not to have thousands of people this year in Hebron. It might be quite not easy for them to protect it. So this is the situation this year, and we wait for you, our dear guests, next year in Mirza Hashem.
By the way, I just want to show you that Raul Karishahan writes, hello, Yishai, would stand with Israel, love and respect from Azerbaijan. So our friends, the Azeris, who are Muslims, are standing with us, and we have a great relationship and an important strategic relationship with Azerbaijan, and we stand with them, and also their internal battles that they have, and they're fighting. And I'm very impressed, and I'm looking forward to go to Azerbaijan and to Baku and to other places to see it for myself. And Raul also says Hamas must be destroyed. Very simple, very simple. And thank you very much for standing with us.
Hamas is shameful for Islam as well.
That's right. And he says we must be united against our shared enemy, Iran. Of course, people who don't know, Azerbaijan is also on the border of Iran, and they have tensions there. And we have a lot of Israelis are there in Azerbaijan helping their defense, and we have an excellent and important relationship, a strategic relationship for the broader region. So thank you very much, Raul. Okay, speaking of our conflict, look, you were a fighter, a soldier in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. I've over the last few weeks, I've asked you a few times, how does this compare? How does this compare to Yom Kippur? What does it feel like? Because Yom Kippur was also a sneak attack, a surprise attack. There too, Israel was short on its defensive abilities and did not perform properly in the first few days. There too, was a lot of Jewish people killed. Now it's not just an attack, but a lot of people were killed. Here, there's also the act of the inhumane mutilation, rape, and all the things that we've seen, and child beheading, and all the things that we've seen, the barbarous acts. But from a perspective of 50 years, comparing the Yom Kippur War and looking at the situation, give me a sense of comparison between these two moments, and maybe you can tell me how Israel feels right now. Try to share that with the folks.
Well, as you said, both events happened in a holiday, Yom Kippur and Simchat
right.
Torah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a mistake. It's not a coincidence. They aim to destroy the nation of Israel in the holiday of Israel. In the Yom Kippur War, I was a soldier, so I can tell you what happened in the battlefield in Sinai and in Golan. And as you said, it's different because in the Yom Kippur War, it was a war between nations, between states, between armies.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't see these barbarous acts that that we have seen a month ago, which is something you cannot describe, you cannot believe, something that people cannot imagine that something like this can happen, but it did happen. So this is the difference. But it's very similar. The enemy wants to destroy Israel again and again, thousands of years. It's the same as the Egyptians, the same the Persians, the same the Romans, the same the Babylonians, the Assyrians, every one of them, to destroy the nation, the Jewishness from the world, the holiness from the world. It happens again and again and again. And
tell me how Israel's feeling. I want to somehow share with people. You're like a born and raised Israeli. Just how do you like you've seen a lot of stuff. You've seen the Oslo wars, the two intifadas, and the 82 war and the 73 war, and you were even a young man in the 67 war. Like, how do you read Israel today when you compare all these different times?
I must tell you that we are seeing a miracle in our own eyes. We thought that the state of Israel, the Israeli society, is torn away. It's divided.
Is what? Okay.
Divided.
Mm-hmm.
You could see the internal war between tribes and groups in the nation of Israel. Something you could see, you could think that the state of Israel has no future, but once the war began, you see a marvelous miracle of unification, of brotherhood, of helping each other, of in Hebrew you say, like the Haman of the Megillat Esther, his title was Tzorer HaYehudim. I say so, the destroyer of the Jews. But at the same time, Tzorer HaYehudim in Hebrew means to make the tzror echad, one, to connect them together.
One chain.
Yeah, that's right. This means also Tzorer HaYehudim.
I never heard that.
The same word has two different meanings. Tzorer.
I mamish never heard that chidush. That's a great innovation. I love it.
The same tzorer, the same destroyer, the same enemy is also the one who
brings you together.
connects them together. That's the same. So this is what happens right in our own eye, right in front of our own eyes, helping each other, volunteering, everything to supply, to help to the soldiers, to help to other people, to help to the agriculture project in the south. Everything happens again and again. Marvelous sight that we are doing, that we are seeing right in our own eyes. And if you go back to Chayei Sarah, in Chayei Sarah we remember our parents, Abraham and Sarah. You also remember Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and Leah. So when we have common parents, we we remember that we are brothers. The Jewish people remembers again that, folks, we are really brothers, and you see it right here in the streets of Israel now.
Okay, Noam, let's wrap it up. I want to thank you so much, but just one last question. What is happening in Hebron? Chai Sarah, the big event, is canceled, but tomorrow night there is a live event that's happening. Tell me a little bit about this event.
Well, we try to share the experience of Hebron with the people all over the world. We are here, the team, I would say, the team of the center, of the spiritual center of Hebron, but our mission is to spread out this experience and knowledge and holiness. So this is why we decided to organize a public prayer, for, of course, for the hijacks and for the soldiers and for all the people of Israel.
The abductees, the people who were kidnapped by the Hamas. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And rabbis will come together from Hebron, from outside, from Tzfat. The Rav of Tzfat will come. We'll pray together. We'll say Tehillim together. We'll hug the families of the two families in Kiryat Arba, Libman, and more, and pray for the sons to return home peacefully and b'shalom v'b'briut. We'll hug the families of the soldiers who were killed, Mishpachat Shani and Mishpachat Duchan. And we'll hug all the nation of Israel. In the name of Sarah Imenu, we'll say to all our brothers, you are all the sons of Sarah Imenu, and Sarah Imenu sends to you her blessings and prayers, and tears, and hopings, and emunah to all her sons and daughters all over the world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noam Arnon, for joining us from Hebron. And B'ezrat Hashem, it will be a beautiful Shabbat Hebron. If not in Hebron, the whole world will connect with the story of Hebron and the tomb of the forefathers and mothers. Dr. Noam, thanks for all the great work that you've been doing to send Hebron to the world and bringing people to Hebron. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. All right, so we've heard from all kinds of heroes today on the show. People are doing great work. And this special Shabbat, we ask you from Hebron to do us a little favor, and that is wherever you are, to pick up a glass of wine, hopefully from Judea and Samaria, hopefully from Israel, hopefully from Judea and Samaria, even from Hebron. Lift up that glass and say L'chaim to the Jews that are holding on to the heartland of the Holy Land in Hebron, and to the forefathers and mothers buried there, the founders of our peoplehood, of the biblical story, and just say that L'chaim. And connect with that 1 second, just like Noam said, it comes from the word connection. There's all kinds of folks that are out there connecting with Israel. I saw a very powerful video. I don't know if we'll have time for all of it, but American commentator Danny Deutsch, who I wasn't so familiar with, a video came out of him defending Israel, and I thought it was worth listening to, instructive to listen to some of his points.
Israel seems to be on trial, which I don't understand, that Israel, people are saying ceasefire, and of course none of us want violence, but there was a ceasefire on October 6th. And since that time, we know what happened on October 7th, beheading, raping, every inhumane thing that you can do by a group whose only mission is not real estate, and it's not protecting Palestinian people. They put their own people in harm's way. They use them as shields. They've stolen billions of dollars of aid from the humanitarian aid from them. Their only mission is to eliminate Israel, eliminate all Jews. That's it. That's their mission. And yet, constantly, Israel seems to be on the defensive. There is something that, for some reason, evil is not graded the same way when it's against Jews and it's against Israel. And I don't understand that.
There's such an anti-Israeli bias because their domestic politics under Netanyahu.
Netanyahu needs to go, by the way.
Correct. And I think U.S. foreign policy experts think that he may not be there. He may not be. But there is this real bias against the plight of Israel, even in the wake of 1,400 primarily civilians being slaughtered over an 8.5-hour period, mutilated, slaughtered, raped in front of their children and husbands and wives.
And what has Israel since then been on the defensive, explaining every move they make? And obviously, And like any human, we want to do everything we can to protect every life.
Of course.
But they're in a war. And innocent civilians are going to be hurt, just like innocent Germans were hurt. But you still got to take out the Nazis. You got to take out ISIS. And Hamas has to be taken out. And there's no other answer. You can't live next door to people whose entire mission is to annihilate you and destroy you. And people in this country are cheering. And the media is just kind of tippy-toeing around it. The Jews are treated different than other groups. That there's a dislike. That there is somehow that Jews being hurt or being slaughtered is different than other people being hurt. That somehow they have it coming to them. Yeah, I said it. That's what this is about. I don't know why the media just can't lay things out evenly. Nobody's asking you to side with either side. Just report it fairly, report honestly, and report one group that is pure evil, and the other group, like us, they're very imperfect, just like we are, but they're a civilized, human value-driven democracy. Hamas is not fighting for peace. They're fighting for death. They don't want peace for their own people. This is just so black and white stuff. There's no gray areas here. And the media is like...
I thought that was very powerful. I thought that he said it very powerfully, without equivocation, and a lot of truth there. A lot of truth there about the latent bias of anti-Semitism. The hate of Jews, it's out there, and then when somebody acts on it, you just want to support that. And I want to tell you that today I got in a lot of trouble on the internet because I said that I think that Israel is in Gaza to stay, because I believe that it's our land historically, and we're the only ones that know how to exercise police power properly to keep that place safe. And I said that jihadis have no place in this land, but pro-Israel Arabs that want to live in our land in peace should be residents of our land. And I laid it out very clearly, and yet still people really flipped out on me because we're afraid. There's a lot of people that are afraid, and then there's a lot of people who want Jews to be afraid. They don't want us to tell the truth. So I said the truth. I think the truth is important right now. I think this is also a battle of truth. I think Josh Waller said, it's a battle of it's a biblical battle. It's a holy battle. It's a battle for God's name, and it's also a battle for truth. I would call it the war of truth, because it's either that there's this war of lies. Israel's the aggressor. Israel's the foreigner. It's the occupier, or really Israel is the ancestral owner of that land, and we're back to that good land. Folks, this part of the show is coming to an end. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank all the folks that make this happen, including Yocheved Seidman, Moshe Herman, Tabitha, Lou, and Ben Bresky for the longer podcast. So please join me at Yishai